Well, Friday means Friday with friends. And of course, it means I get to interview one of you. And I'm so excited. And so I gave you a really good hint yesterday as to who was going to be my guest. And many of you knew exactly who I was talking about when all I had to ask was the question, what's for dinner? So without further ado, let's bring her on. Here we go, Miss Sue Cleek. Yay! Hello, Sue. Can you unmute yourself? There
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing, Sue?
I'm doing great, doing great, doing great.
Good, 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 good. Okay, it sounds like there might be a little bit of an echo, but we're going to do our best, right?
Okay.
Okay, so no AirPods there, but we will still do our best, no doubt about it. So yes, there she is, live and in person, everyone. Heidi says, there she is. You're kind of famous around here, Sue. We love you. And so I guess the first question is, what do you have cooking tonight, Sue?
Well, what we're having, my husband is cooking hamburgers on the grill. So that way I didn't have to do anything ahead of time or try to do something that, during this time frame. Because oftentimes I'm busy running between watching this and then going in the kitchen and turning the stove on or doing this or that,
I know. And you always are telling us the yummiest stuff that you are making. And we're all salivating going, oh, I wish I had Miss Sue at my house right now.
Y'all come on down. Now it's just myself and my husband. So I tend to cook too much. So, we'll probably have, he always, when he cooks the hamburgers on the grill, however long it takes, however much a package takes, that's how much we make, so we have maybe 8 or 10 hamburgers for 2 people.
So lots of leftovers, right?
It's a good thing my husband loves leftovers.
Yeah, in fact, that reminds me, sometimes you'll say things like, what do you call it, Sue, when you are having leftovers?
There's do-overs. Do-overs.
Do-overs. That's
yes.
What you call it. Yes. Because I love it when you say, we've got do-overs for tonight. I love that.
Yep. Do-overs.
Not leftovers, but do-overs. That's perfect.
And there's kind of a funny story attached to this, what's for dinner kind of thing on this show. I was at a workshop not too long ago, and the person, the place where the person doing the workshop has a regular Sunday night video thing that we watch, and one of the things on there is I'm always the person who notices that her screen is backwards, and
okay.
And she always tries to say, oh, I better switch my screen before Sue catches me, So at the workshop, she was we were introducing ourselves and everything. And when it came to me, the person said, she's the one who always says you're backwards. And, so the person there said, oh, you're Sue Cleek, And then the funny thing was, she told her friend, from that wasn't there, she said, oh, I met Sue Cleek, the one who always tells that the camera's backwards. And her friend said, oh, Sue Cleek's the one on 3 Things at 3 that always says, this is what's for dinner. It's always fixing good stuff for dinner.
Oh my gosh, how crazy is that, Sue?
It is funny. That
is really funny. So yeah, you were So you never know what you've started.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Very true, right? Oh my
Yes,
goodness. That is too funny. And that the fact that she would remember you
I
from
know.
3 Things at 3, like just in the comments, right?
Right, right, right.
That's how close this community has grown, is just
And I love
because
it. I think
we
that's
know.
one of the best things.
Thank you, Sue. Oh my goodness. Well, Sue, tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? And tell us maybe a little bit about your family.
Okay. Well, I grew up in New Jersey and spent, my whole life there. But when I went to college in Virginia. And I actually never moved back to New Jersey after that, but I met my husband, who's actually from Virginia, but when he was a sophomore in high school, his parents moved up to New Jersey. And he happened to be seated next to me in a club when he came, he was seated next to me, and, it was snowing outside. And I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Virginia." And I said, "Oh, I bet you've never seen this stuff before." And he said, "I just left about 3 feet of snow."
Mm-hmm.
So, my little microcosm of the world, I didn't think about that. So, but, we eventually got married, and we have 3 daughters, and I have 9 grandchildren.
9 grandchildren.
Yes, 9 grandchildren.
Oh my
I don't
goodness.
know if you got that picture I sent of the grandkids.
I do have a few pictures here. You keep telling us about them, and I'm going to keep uploading them.
Yeah, there you go. It was a really neat kind of thing I had 3 daughters.
Here we go.
And then I turned around and I had 8 grandsons. And then finally had a granddaughter.
Oh.
So right now they range in age from 22 and 20, both of whom were in college, down to 8 years old. The youngest just turned 8, and she, and she is the one who is actually responsible for my quilting journey.
Really? How's that?
It's really kind of funny. When I was growing up, I knew nobody who sewed. My mom didn't sew. None of my relatives sewed. None of my neighbors that I knew sewed or anything like that. And so when I was in 6th grade, they took us by a bus to the junior high school, and we took home ec. For the girls took home ec. The boys took shop, back in the day. That was my first introduction to a sewing machine. And so, I'd made a few things and everything, and I liked it okay, and I didn't think much about it. And then for some reason, and I have no idea what my mom's reasoning was behind this, when I was in, I can't remember, 7th or 8th grade, she just bought me a sewing machine randomly. I mean, she never sewed, and it was like, oh, okay. And so I started using it, and I've made lots of my clothes and everything. And even when I went to college, I'd pretty much sew something a day, like a dress or a shirt or a pair of pants or something like that every day. I sewed my prom dress, all that kind of stuff. And so, fast forward to, we started.
Back up just a minute, Sue. How did you learn to do those things?
Well, I just did them, I would get a pattern, I would look through the patterns, how they used to, well, I guess they still have that kind of thing where,
Sure.
the simplicity or whatever. And,
Yeah.
you look through the patterns and I'd say, oh, I like this, and I'd try it and I'd make it. And, I used to bicycle to a fabric store that was about 15 miles from my house. And I used to bicycle down a 4-lane road with no, nobody thought anything of that back then,
Wow.
And I'd bicycle to the fabric shop and I'd get some fabric and then I'd come home and I'd make something from it and everything. And then I started branching out and I made well, he wasn't my husband then, but George, I made him some ties and I made him a shirt and a bow tie.
Oh, you captured his heart, Sue.
And so, you fast forward. And I actually even was a home ec major, but that's another one of my naive or whatever, I didn't really understand what that meant. I thought you sewed and maybe you cooked a little, and cooking, was okay, but when I went to college, I found out not only was it more than cooking and sewing and a little bit of cooking, but you had to do things like take organic chemistry because they felt it was important that you knew the chemical reactions in the food.
Okay.
And, you had to take things like home decor or whatever it was called back then, interior decorating.
Interior decorating.
Like, what is this all about and everything? And so I did have a home ec major, but I had other majors too and wound up, in education. So, and then you fast forward to, we get married and I make the curtains for the house and slip covers, all this stuff. And then I started having kids. And so I did learn how to smock and I made dresses for them and all this. But by the time I had my third kid, and then my second one was kind of sickly a little bit. So she spent some time in and out of the hospital. I ended up just sort of, life took over. And so I didn't sew for 30 years. 30 years. I didn't even, I had a sewing machine and it was a nice, sewing machine for the time and everything. And so fast forward to, I have 8 grandsons and then I have a granddaughter. And it just so happened, I always liked quilts the way they looked. And I would even buy quilt magazines just to look at the quilts,
Yeah.
And so I was looking through a magazine one time and I saw this quilt that I thought, oh, I think I could do this. And, so I had no idea about buying fabric for quilts or anything. I thought, here's this picture of this quilt in this pretty fabric, and that's what I wanted was that fabric. Well, after searching around, I discovered, this was, I forgot, say 2006, something like that. And the fabric was from like 1985. That's how old the pattern was. And it was just a free pattern, kind of thing.
Sure.
So, I start looking around and I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get fabric? And there weren't any fabric stores, near me or anything. So, I kind of looked around and I found this fabric store that was about, maybe 30 miles from me or something. So I drive there and it was a nice fabric store, became my local quilt shop. But I had no idea how to pick anything out because I said, do you have this fabric? Thinking, Oh, why wouldn't they have fabric from 1985 and 2008? You know,
Yeah,
why
no
not?
idea.
And, they
And
said,
so,
no, we don't have that. But they helped me figure out and pick out fabric and everything. And so I sent you a picture of
yeah,
that one.
here we go, right
Yes.
here.
And that is the beginning. Oh, so then I said to them, I said, you don't happen to have quilt classes, do you? They said, sure, we got them. Look online. So I go at
Uh-huh.
home and I look online, and they had a quilt class starting the next day.
Oh
So
my
I just
goodness.
decided I'll show up,
Ah!
So I showed up and I said, can I get in this quilt class? And they said, sure, you can come and join us. And so then, I'm learning. And so they have a quilt that you do. So I do a little bit on the quilt, that quilt. And then I do another, I do something on the quilt, that I picked out and everything. And,
Uh-huh.
and it's really, the rest is history, because I
There you
mean,
go.
I had no idea what I was doing. You saw there was a big H on that thing.
Yeah.
For my granddaughter's name is Hadley, and which was, I just cut it out and did my best to, but I did have a blanket stitch on my machine. And it was so funny because my machine was pretty old. And when I first was going to do this, I took it in to a repair place, and I said, could you check this to make sure this still works and everything? Because I hadn't used it. And the guy, he did whatever he did. He said, yeah, it's fine. So I took it to class, and everybody's machine would be going, and here's mine going, because it was a lot older, and
Sure.
it was still a mechanical machine. It wasn't electronic or anything, and
Sure.
but
Oh,
here I am, 6, 7 years later, or about 7 years later, and I have much better machine now and everything. And I even have a serger and
nice.
all that.
Oh, you love your serger.
I love my serger.
You love your serger. Every time we do a project, if you could do it on the serger, you're like the first one to chime in and it says, you can do that on a serger.
Yes, yes.
And I totally agree with you, Sue.
Yes,
I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
But I always chuckle when I see Sue said, I bet you could do that with the serger. I bet you could do that with the serger. And I'm like, yeah, she's got it. She's got one. She must love it.
I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but here is, let's see. Which way? Oh, it goes this way. Never mind.
Oh, there you go. There's your serger.
Oops.
Oh. Please tell me those aren't all your UFOs.
See, I have my serger right there on this side of the table. And then I have my, well, can you see it? Oh, I'm going the wrong way again.
It's a little backwards.
There it is, my sewing machine back there,
It's a beauty. Is that a Solaris?
Yeah, it's a Solaris. And that's a kind of funny story too. When my husband, when I first started going, and he said, "Oh no, you're going to want a new machine." I said, "Oh, this one's fine," and all this. And one day I happened to be walking through the store, and back at that time they put little signs up, "Oh, this is on sale," and it had a price, and I started looking at it, and then somebody came over and, you want to see this? And of course I had no idea about embroidery or anything like that. And, so they're showing me, it wasn't, back then it was a Unity was what I was looking at,
Great machine.
And so, I go home to my husband. I said, you said I might want a machine. Well, and lo and behold, he said, all right, if that's what you want, And so I got the embroidery stuff, and And I never had done embroidery, had not a clue about it. And so when I was first trying it, I was so scared and nervous and everything. And the first thing I did on it was embroider or do an applique on a little dress for my granddaughter. And I thought I was so smart. It was one of those dresses that real simple A-line that had the button here, you know, and has the little scoop neck, you know. And so I thought I was so smart, and I put it on, and I cut out the dress, and I sew the dress together and everything. And I take it to my daughter, and, you know, look what I made. And so she puts it on the daughter, and she's going, something's not right. I had sewn the applique on the back of the dress.
Oh,
no. Only me. But it didn't deter me. I kept on at it, and I love embroidery now, you know.
You see, I just wanted it to be seen from everyone sitting behind me.
There you go. That's right. You can see me, you know, because my daughter at the time, she wanted her name, her daughter's name on everything. You know, she's a big kind of foo-foo person herself. And so, you know, she wanted monograms, and she wanted all this fancy stuff and everything. Yeah. And of course, what's a grandma to do but oblige, you know?
You gotta do it. I'm glad you kept to doing those things, though, that you did not let that deter you.
And that's a message I would have to everybody is don't give up, even if you mess up the first time, you know. Don't give up, because first of all, you learn by doing it. And you can, I learned a lot just watching the embroidery stitch out. You know, how it stitches out and what it does and everything. You know, that was real telling to me. And, you know, when I got some software so I could do a little more, you know, I could use the software better just because I had somewhat of an understanding of it. So,
yeah, that's great. So, you know, to think that you really started it into quilting, let's see, 2008, did you say?
Well, it's about 7 years ago, because Hadley just turned 8. So.
That's not very long.
All that long.
7 years ago. And to think that, I'm going to bring up, this was your first quilt that you did.
Right,
okay, this was for your sweet granddaughter, which is absolutely adorable, can I just say. But may I show some of these other quilts that you are now doing, and you tell us about them, okay? Let's take a look. All right. Look at that. Holy cannoli. Sue, tell us about this quilt.
And that quilt was a really special quilt in a lot of ways. It was one of the first, I got into using Deb Tucker rulers, Studio 180 rulers, and I absolutely love those. And that's another thing that, you know, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, you know, it's a ruler that does one thing. Why would I buy it? Well, it's a ruler that does many things if you really look at it. And Deb Tucker takes the time to show you tons and tons of ways to do this. And, you know, this quilt was special in the sense that one of my husband's cousins, her husband fell down the stairs at night and he passed away. And it was, you know, it was very traumatic for all of us and everything. And he was very big into wind energy. And he even was a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for wind energy and everything. And so I made this quilt for her. She, when we went up for the funeral and everything, she didn't have a quilt. And I'm like, how do you not have a quilt? You know, I mean, here she lives in Vermont in this nice, you know, kind of, I mean, it's a house that just begs for quilts, you know, and all this. And so, you know, when I came back and I thought, oh, I can do this, you know, make this, because to me, this reminds me of a windmill kind of thing.
I
And,
love that.
you know, and it's so, you know, looks like it's complicated, but it really is easy to do with the Deb Tucker rulers.
Yeah,
you know?
Deb Tucker, for those of you who might not be familiar, she has a design studio called Studio 180, and she's the one who does the Tucker trimmer we talk about all the time for half square triangles. Another favorite of mine is the wing clipper.
Right.
There's so many, and she like Sue said, she makes something that looks incredibly difficult so much easier with the right tool, right?
Yes. And you know, you could do this same quilt without her tools, and you know, it would just be a little more difficult, especially if you were a more, say, even an intermediate quilter. It would still be difficult to get everything to line up, match up, and everything, you know. So,
well, she's all about you cut a little bit larger, and then you square to what you need it to be, and the rulers help you to do that. And so you don't have to rely on perfect cutting and absolutely perfect sewing and perfect pressing. This, I always say, like, her rulers make me feel like I'm a magician.
Yes, there you go.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that just came out of that, you know. So I love, Sue's a huge advocate for Studio 180 quilts. Let me bring up another one that you sent to me that is just stunning. Let's take a look. Oh, tell us about this one.
This one is has about, I want to say, like 200 flying geese in it. That's basically what it's made up of, is flying geese. And, you know, it gives you so much good practice for doing flying geese. And so I would definitely recommend this pattern. It's, you know, one of Deb Tucker's patterns for doing it. Now, my local quilt shop had somebody, a certified instructor, come in and teach some of these classes and everything. And then Deb Tucker has a program for shop owners called
Tucker University.
Yes, Tucker University. Thank you. I don't know why my brain wouldn't work there. And in that, you know, obviously the shop owner has to buy the program, but that, you know, the shop owner or somebody in the shop can teach those things. And you take the ruler and you spend time using, you know, and if you just even take the beginning class of it, you will have enough knowledge to do so many quilts, you know, different patterns and all. And I'm always forever what I call Tuckerizing patterns, you know. I will look at it, and, you know, in particular, you know, one of the methods for making flying geese is to do 2 half square triangles and put them together. And mine, when I tried it that way, mine always ended up cattywampus, you know. It just, and so when I do it this way, you know, I really don't have any trouble. You know,
well, when you do it that way, you're not working with the bias edges. And so it just makes it like everything is completely square. Love it.
Right. So,
and Sue, your colors, everyone's commenting on the colors. They're gorgeous. Do you enjoy choosing the fabric?
And actually, the color on this doesn't show up really as good as it actually is, you know. But yes, you know, that's one thing I have actually learned a lot about. And I learned that I have to give my local quilt shop a shout out and the people in there, because they really helped me learn how to work with colors,
Wonderful.
and I've developed at least a much better idea for color, and
Well, that the contrast there is just what makes it so stunning.
yeah, it does look very stunning. And it looks like in there it's really all the square or the diamonds, whatever you want to call them, the squares on point
Sure.
they are more secondary, a
Yeah,
secondary pattern to it. You
definitely.
didn't really have to do much for that,
It was created on its own based off
Right,
of what you had the original quilt block to be.
right.
Once you put those together, a secondary pattern forms, and it's absolutely
Exactly.
gorgeous.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's one of those things that reminds me of, have you ever like looked at pictures and they always say, you know what, is that it? What are you seeing? Are you seeing this or are you seeing this? Right? And everyone looks at it differently. I look at this quilt and I look at it in one way and I go, oh, there's that pattern. But then I look away and I come back to it and I focus on something totally different. And now a total new
Yes.
pattern has emerged,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I've got
Yes.
this
Yes.
pesky
Yes.
fly flying around here. Cheryl is wondering, is the contrast navy blue or black?
It's navy blue.
Navy
Navy
blue.
blue with kind of an aqua-y color.
Beautiful. I
Yeah,
love
it was
that.
navy though.
I
And
love
and
that.
and
Now,
I love navies myself, so I do
mhm,
tend to gravitate toward
same.
navy a lot. So
It's beautiful. Oh my goodness, Sue, absolutely beautiful. Now, you shared with me this picture. Tell us about that.
okay, this is the back side of the other one was called New York Star. And one of the things, and on the back of my quilts, I do try to do something other than just a plain back. In this
Oh,
case, this happened to be a panel that I had laying around. And to me, it
wow.
was perfect to go along with, her husband, who was so much into wind energy and that kind of thing.
Oh,
And
you put this on the back of that first quilt?
right, exactly,
Wow.
exactly. And um and
Wow.
it says everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it,
I love
you
that.
know. And I do think that's a beautiful quote,
That is
and
a
so
very beautiful quote.
yes, yes, yes,
I've
yes, yes.
I've never thought to add something like that onto the back of my quilts.
Yeah. And actually I have a ton of panels because I like panels, but then they
Mhm.
just sort of sit there, because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I do with it now?
Yeah. I think that's great. Judy wants to know if you quilt your own quilts.
Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't.
Mhm.
When I quilt my own quilts, I tend to do more either straight line, but I'll do like cross hatching, and
Mhm.
I'll maybe do it not necessarily evenly, that kind of
Sure.
thing. And
Mhm.
I'll do the serpentine stitch, and
Mhm.
a lot of times I'll take some of the other decorative stitches and use and do them. And I
Sure.
have gotten with the Solaris, and I had a Destiny before the Solaris. I
Uh-huh.
do a lot of use their fill patterns and
Oh,
try
yes.
and make those, kind
Mhm.
of create it. And
Sure.
I've also taken, I don't know if anybody's heard of Emily Scott, who does
Mhm.
edge to
Mhm.
edge.
Yeah.
That's another person I've learned from. See, and that's to
Yeah.
me that this has been a blessing to me. The pandemic, even
Mm.
though it's been a horrible thing as far as
Mhm.
people, getting sick and everything,
Mhm.
and having to stay home all the time. But like when you started 3 at 3, you know, somehow I discovered you. I don't know how I discovered you, but I did. And you were just starting the 3 at 3. And back then you just had that, you were going to do, I forgot what you even called it, but where you'd had that week-long thing. You had to, I forgot what you called it, but.
Was it Meet the Makers?
No, it wasn't Meet the Makers. It was before, because that was when you had, that was something different. You know, you had a different person come on each day, and then you decided to extend it, and then you did a next week thing. And then that sort of evolved into the 3 at 3, you know, kind of thing.
Oh, I think the Makers Summit is someone is saying.
Oh yeah, it was a summit. Yeah,
okay.
That was what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
And
wow, you've been with me since then.
Since then, yes.
That's over a year ago.
I know. And it was so interesting to me to see so many different things that I had never even thought about or, you know, done or anything, you know. So it just sparked so much in me and everything. And then, you know, I certainly love the 3 at 3. And I love the fact that, you know, I can't go and do couldn't go and do online, I mean, in-person classes, and I was missing all my quilting friends that I made at my local quilt shop and everything. And so when we started doing all this virtual stuff, I mean, it has been wonderful, you know.
Wow.
And I discovered, you know, so many different people through you and then through other people too. You know, a lot of the baby lock educators have, you know, started doing things online and everything. And so, you know, you just, and it's, I think it's one thing, you know, how people will say, okay, like in beginning quilting, they'll say, okay, you kind of do it this way, this way, this way. And I, as a former educator, retired educator, I understand that, you know, you've got to have a starting point, you know. So, you know, that was great. And we even in that beginning quilting class, they did teach us about, you know, quilting your own, but they did it through the straight line kind of thing, you know. So you got to, you know, you learned a lot from that. And but then, you know, as I listened to other people and everything, and I realized, first of all, there's a lot of ways to accomplish things, you know, and you have to learn what works for you, you know. Just because somebody says you have to do it this way or that way, or you know, or even they'll say best practice is this or that. And in general, they're right. There's nothing wrong with that. But if something works for you, you know, I like to listen and I pull a lot of things together and then kind of come up with things that work for me, or I modify what I was doing, you know. So
absolutely. No, that's a great thing. True. What's that?
I think it's just a great thing that's come out of this, that I've met so many online people. You know, I feel like I've really gotten to know people, even though I didn't really know them. But then as we're starting to go back to events now, I sometimes, like I did at that other event, I meet people, you know, that,
like, totally. And when I first started talking to you, it was like, we have not met in person yet, but it was just this immediate, like, picking up where we left off kind of thing.
I know,
and I was asking
you're exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my goodness, Sue, I can't believe our time is almost up. You have been such a wonderful guest today. But before we get off, somebody really wants to see the side of your room with all your storage.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, would that be okay?
Yes, it's kind of a mess, but hey.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, we're all there with you, my
Here we
friend.
go.
Look at that. Oh, Sue, Miss Sue.
You know that
would not.
I think you had it on one of the funny things where you said, I've been put on earth to create quilts and things, so I'm scheduled to die in 835 years.
Yep, I'll be
That's
living to
me. That's me.
875 years.
You have fabric down there, and of course
Sue,
now
I
you
would
look
not call that a mess.
on the floor. There's fabric, and it's like
Oh no, Sue, that's amazing.
So
that's amazing. That's really organized.
All right, wait a minute. Let me do this. I want to show you.
I think a lot of us would just drool over all that organization.
Let's see. This is here. Here we go. This is where I have all my threads and everything. So
wow.
And I did start when I started doing things. Started quilting, embroidering. I mean, the shop where I went carried Floriani thread, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to get Floriani thread. I knew there were hundreds of brands of thread, but I just stuck with Floriani, and it has served me well. So
good.
Here's my design wall. You can see a quilt.
Hey, that quilt's beautiful.
I finished, except I have to, sandwich it and quilt it and everything, bind it. So.
Oh, that's beautiful, Sue.
And let's see. Here's my. Oops. Well, it's kind of dark. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's my ironing thing. My ironing station. Let's see if I can hold up this. This is a quilt I'm working on for one of my daughters. Let's see how.
Cute.
But this is
that
one
is
of the
so
ones
cute.
I colorized.
I love that. Yeah. Steph wants to know if she can Airbnb your sewing room.
Sure. She doesn't even have to Airbnb. She just come, like I said, my husband and I are, our children don't live with us at the moment. I'm hoping it kind of stays that way, but we're here if they need us. But our bedroom is downstairs, and we have a hole upstairs where the kid used to be, and I've sort of, you talked about my sewing room. Well, I kind of have a sewing upstairs because I have certainly stuff in this room, but I sort of spill over. I've got all my scrap bins in another room, and I have all my stabilizer in another room. I have all my embroidery CDs in another room.
So my husband's spilling over.
Yes, and I asked my husband the other day. I said, "Do you think we can move this thing downstairs, from upstairs downstairs and put it here?" He said, "Why? You want more room for your sewing stuff?" And that really wasn't the reason, but hey, if it works, why not?
There you go. I love that, Sue. Oh my goodness, how fun. It has been so much fun getting to know you better today. And I think a lot of people here have also really enjoyed getting to know the Miss Sue Cleek, because you are just so incredibly sweet, kind, generous. You're always so helpful, in answering people's questions. And I just appreciate you being a part of our community.
Well, thank you. I enjoy being part of this community.
Thank you. And before we end, I would love to ask you the question that I always ask our guests as we leave is, what life advice has served you well?
I obviously have been thinking about it because I've heard what other people say. And I had this kind of longer explanation, but I saw something online, a quote from Mr. Rogers, and he said, "Not every day is good, but there's always something good in every day."
Oh.
And I thought, that's it. That's exactly what it is. Because I had this long story and everything. I thought, no. My husband always says I talk too much, you know.
Oh, it's so true. That is so true. There's always something good that can be found in every day, right?
Right.
Good
That's
words to
exactly
live by. You
right.
gotta love Mr. Rogers. I mean, everything he said was golden, right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, that's a great message to end with. Thank you so much, Sue. Hey,
You're
now you
welcome.
get to shout with me. We've done theme number 1.
One.
We talked
We've
about
done
through theme
theme
number
number
2. What
2.
time is it?
Time for the daily deal.
There you go.